Hey, Speak Easy podcast listeners. I am excited about this particular episode because when it comes to virtual teams, guess what? I have one. I've been working with one for several years and I absolutely love it. I know there's the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to everything quote unquote new age, but I'm excited to talk about how virtual teams are definitely it's putting a new fire under entrepreneurship, under speakers, under authors.
Yeah.
It's putting a new fire under just businesses that had to make a drastic change throughout this year. And you may be that business owner, you may be that speaker or that author who's still kind of laying in the weights, thinking, oh my goodness, do I need a virtual team? Can I use one? Like, how can it benefit me? So we're definitely going to hit on some of those topics as well in today's episode, but I am excited because I have an awesome guest. Hello, Carlos. How are you?
I'm well. Tavis, how are you? I hear a dog.
I'm super excited. Oh my goodness. I guess because as an introvert, virtual teams are like the bee's knees for me.
Yeah.
For the extroverts, they may not, be that excited about it. But for me, it was okay. But before we even jump into all that, give the studio audience a little bit of details about you, and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Okay. Full name is Carlos Valdes-Dapena. I have been an organizational effectiveness consultant for more years than I want to admit to, but it's a lot. And spent the last 17 of those working as an internal consultant at Mars Incorporated. And while I was there, I was lucky enough to do some research and gain some insights into what it really takes to get people engaged in collaboration. So I'm not the fluffy teamwork guy who's going to take you out and we're going to do a night of bowling and make everybody feel nice. I'm about how do you get people actually working together to produce results in a way that was better than before we did that thing with Carlos, right? So that's my thing. And it's based on research. It's in a couple of books I've written. I live outside New York City with my wife. I got a couple of grown kids and a couple of grandkids.
Well, I love it. Okay, so let's just bare bones throw it all out on the table. Why are people so scared of virtual teams?
Because despite the fact that we've had the technology around for a decade or more, look, let's get real, right? We've had telephones for a long time. And 20 years ago, I was doing phone conferences, weren't you? We were doing virtual collaboration. Nobody liked it very much. If you were smart, you limited these things to under an hour because you lose people real quick. I started facilitating virtual meetings when I was with IBM back in the late 90s. And I'm sure they started before that. So it's been with us a long time, but we never really had to confront it. Most of us who wanted to had the option to be face-to-face at least sometime. And companies would spend huge amounts of money to make that possible. Like me, I worked in a couple of big companies. The budgets for travel were serious. And they were serious because people needed that face-to-face time. I get it. I need face-to-face time. I'm an introvert like you, Altavis, but I still need people. I still need connection. I guess people were uncertain when March 15th rolled around this year, at least in North America, and suddenly we didn't have a choice anymore. People were like, oh my goodness. The experiences I've had so far with this have not been great. They're okay for a little occasional thing, a little video here, a little phone conference there, but every day. And then you got to admit, those folks with young kids at home who had to cope with that, people who were on their own, individuals who had nobody at home to keep them company, the other end of the scale, that was unnerving for people. There were a lot of unknowns here. The amazing thing to me was, when I was working at Mars, I was part of a project where we were challenged to reduce travel budgets, and we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars now, to be take out a third of the global travel budget by using technology more. we spent 2 years working on this, and we built campaigns, and we built strategies, and we built tools. We couldn't budge. We couldn't move that needle. COVID comes along. Boom. We're saving $200 million a year on travel because people aren't traveling anymore, and it's working. There are problems, but that fear people had, once they started to face into it and deal with it day to day, day in, day out, give them a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, it's working. It's working. And that was the thing that this has been a breakthrough, and just goes to show you what happens when the need is real, right? When you have to face into a reality you hadn't expected, you can do what you need to do. And people have done that to a great extent. And the technology has been a huge help. Hadn't been easy all the time, but it's been a big help.
Oh, I definitely agree with you there. It's the world stopped. And
Yep.
it was almost like that moment of you're walking on a treadmill and the treadmill just stops.
Yeah, right? Boom.
Boom. That's it. There's no use in fussing at the treadmill. There's no use in fighting the treadmill. It's not moving.
No.
And as entrepreneurs, especially those who are just getting started, we kind of, because I rebranded like 6 years ago. So e-commerce and virtual teams, that has been a part of my, my growth. That's been a part of the rebrand. But for someone else who, again, we talked about how in the beginning, we might have used it. It was a possibility, but it wasn't mandatory to have to mandatorily use it. And it shifted a lot of people. I love it as the introvert because I love building, I love building networks. I love building relationships, but I don't have to be in the room with you.
Right.
And I think that was very valuable for me. But can you talk about that value of building the connections and the relationships with people who are outside of that circle?
Well, I talked to a couple of managers, friends of mine at Mars and clients, and I was asking them how they were coping. This was probably in May, June. How's it going? Right? Your team leader, I know the technology you're using. It was mostly Skype, Microsoft Teams, some Zoom. Anyway, they came at it different ways, but what they learned, this is so interesting to me too. What they learned was you have to stop, right? These are very results-oriented people, right? They want to get the job done, and they're used to being able to do that and to rally people around them. And they focus on the work, the task at hand. But they had to stop and come at this a little differently. One person I talked to realized it early on, fell over in Denmark, was talking to me about this. Another person, it took a few months. But you have to create space for people to just be real about how challenging, difficult, for some exciting and comfortable. What are the feelings that are wrapped up with this experience? You can't rush past that anymore. You can't rush past it anymore. You're not in the room anymore to build those relationships, right? We're not in there to give a hug or a handshake. I can see you on video, but I can't read your body language. Can't do it, right? It kind of, sort of at a stretch, maybe, but not really, right? The subtle intonations in your voice, they really get blurred by the audio quality on the internet. So you have to say, wait, we've had all that taken away from us. We just got to talk about the feelings. And look, management and leadership people have been talking about empathy and dealing with emotions and being authentic, right? For decades. That's how old I am. I remember when this was a new idea. Now, once again, just like when COVID said you can't be in the room together, COVID is saying you got to deal with people with who they are, and all of them, right? Happy, sad, angry, frustrated. You can't say, well, we just have to get on with it. We have to push through. Come a time when you have to do that. But the lessons I've been collecting from my clients and colleagues is you got to create space for people to be people. And I think that's just, I'm sorry it took COVID-19 for people to be saying that to me, but it's really a blessing, right?
Yeah, getting back to the human experience.
Let's just be real with each other now, because if we're not, I'm just going to burn out, right? If I can't put my feelings somewhere, this isn't going to last, right? I'm not going to be able to sustain over time. Whether it's my kids who are driving me crazy, or the fact that I'm all alone in an apartment in Paris, I can't go outside. Whatever the strains, whatever the stressors, we have to be able to talk about them. And the beautiful part is hearing people saying, we actually know each other better today than we did before COVID-19.
True.
That was a revelation to me.
That part, and it leads me into this next piece, because the elephant in the room is that we don't know how to communicate.
We don't know how to communicate. Like, wow, that's pretty big statement.
That's a big, and that was a big elephant in the room, because you had so many different things. And I know some of you are going to say, oh my goodness, she just like went way rogue. Okay, just hear me out.
Yeah.
When we think about corporations, especially as they get bigger, there's a disconnect. And so how I communicate with other CEOs is not going to be how I communicate with the employee. How I communicate with, the person that's right underneath me is going to be completely different than somebody who's lower on, and I hate to use the statement totem pole, but is lower on the totem pole. It's going to be different. And before now, I may not have had to communicate with them, but maybe once a month in a newsletter or, things like that. And so when looking at that, it also taps into, when I learn how to communicate better, I can delegate better. I know, what I can hand off, and I can hand it off and be clear in description about how I want something completed.
You're absolutely right. You shocked me when you said it, but you really are right. We most of us, and I have to include myself in this, we assume people understand what we mean because of the word, for whatever reason, right? And now we're learning people don't, right? You have to slow down. Once again, slow down. So let's talk about communicating for a minute. Communicating isn't just the words I use, right? It's listening to your reactions. It's asking you, so does that make sense? What's not clear? It's saying, oh, okay, let me see if I put it a different way. It's a two-way street, isn't it? And used to be we could get away with that to a certain extent, because you could walk down the hall and see your colleague and say, oh, that's not quite what I meant. I can't do that anymore, right? To your point, I'm going to have to delegate with clarity and empathy, good listening skills, all that matters. And you're right. I think that's another one of those things COVID has put up on the table for us to have to look at and go, guess I have to deal with that.
It's one of those moments where you go, I didn't know I had to do this homework on self.
Right. Wake up. Stuff's changed.
Now, I know you talk about cracking the code for high performance collaboration.
Yeah.
And we talk about here on the show how, within those first 5 years, we have to really be careful about who we're connecting with, and making sure that our vision and mission sometimes line up, and, our core values line up. And then it's taking it to a whole nother level when we think about high performance collaborations. So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, so let me be as simple as I can be. Whether you're working in the same room or you're working on other sides of the planet, right? There are three things that have to line up. That the collaboration, the work we're doing together, has to create value for the organization we're serving, whether it's our small entrepreneurial firm or a big company like Mars. It's got to create value for the organization. It's got to create value for the team that's doing the work, so the smaller group of people within the organization that's doing the collaborating, and for each individual involved in that collaboration. So it's this triple bottom line of collaboration: value for the organization, value for the team, and value for the individual. If you are working in such a way that that is true, that all three groups or individuals would say, yep, this is absolutely valuable for me, valuable for my group, valuable for my company, that's high performance collaboration. It's the only way to measure it, right? You can't measure it by the way people are acting or what they're doing. You have to measure outcomes. And those are the outcomes I look for. When I sit down with someone and their team, that's what I want to know. Are people clear about how this is creating value for the company? Are they clear about it? And do they believe it's creating value for this group? Does this group have an identity? Does it have a sense of group? And are they as individuals getting something out of this? If they're not, if any one of those three isn't getting value, then that's not high performance. It might be collaboration, and it might be effective up to a point, but it really starts to sing when you got all three of those things working together. That's alignment. It's really just alignment of intent and vision.
I love that. It's definitely shifting, all of the shiny object syndrome storylines and messages that are being put out there, that, this is time to, I don't want to say it like put up or shut up, but it is.
I hear that. No, I think that's right. It's not, everybody loves teamwork. Be on the team, be a good team player. We're a great team. It feels, so much of that is just happy talk, right? Show me how this collaboration really matters, why it's meaningful, not just to me or to the boss, but how it has meaning and value for everybody that is a stakeholder, right? That's all. That's what I need. That's what I need. Because I can go, bowling by myself. I don't need to go out and have a couple beers and bowl with the team in order to make us feel like a team. I don't need that. What I want to know is that Steve Jobs talked about what's the dent you're going to make in the universe. I want to know that my collaboration is making a dent, right? It's making a difference. And that's going to make me feel like I'm contributing and like my work matters.
Oh my goodness, that part. That is the perfect way to end up this episode. Speakeasy Podcast listeners, I hope you guys have been taking great notes. If you have not, there's this little button where you go and you rewind it back and press play again. Be sure to share it out, and don't forget to join the conversation and let us know how this particular episode resonated with you. bit.ly/Speakeasy Podcast Show. And Carlos, let them know how they can reach out to you for more information and where they can get the book.
Sure. If you go to my website, Carlos V like Victor, I have to spell my name, Dapena, Carlos V. Dapena, Dapena, Carlos V. Dapena, and you'll probably see it at the post of this website at, what is it? carlosvdapena.com. That's my website. Go to the contact tab there and write me a note. Let's talk. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Carlos Valdes-Dapena is my name there. Let's have a conversation.
That's
virtually.
It always starts with the conversation. So guys, make sure that if you're looking at it and you're saying, you know what, okay, I'm done with being fearful about having a virtual team. I'm done with being fearful about collaborating with people. I want to see how I can make this work for me. Definitely make sure that you reach out to Carlos, because that is what it is all about. I appreciate each and every one of you, because guess what? There is no Speakeasy Podcast without the Speakeasy Podcast listeners. And as your host, I appreciate that. So until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.